a common theme in stories, movies, etc., is that of the misunderstood genius. The misunderstood genius has a brilliant idea and is shunned by the teachers or their bosses, whoever should have been going, oh yes, that's a brilliant idea. And then because it's a story we've actually heard, the genius idea ends up working and in some way influences saving the world, and of course whoever doubted them changes their tune. We've heard this story before, right? And of course, for every genius who sticks it out, how many more have given up and never share their idea or let the doubters win? We of course don't hear those stories, right? But what is it, that thing that gets in the way of our innovation and our creativity? Well, since we're following Brown's book, Daring Greatly, the answer is shame. And fear of shame and ridicule stops us in our tracks. And it inhibits vulnerability, creativity, and the opportunity for connections. A culture of shame can be used to make a classroom sit down and be quiet, and make employees into automatons who just do as they're told and push the buttons. However, a culture of innovation and let's try it can breed student engagement with the material, which of course leads to them retaining the material. Employees who feel like their contributions matter, and loyalty to the company increases, which of course also increases productivity and sales. And of course it makes our lives and our relationships more vibrant and free and fun. Now, some of you know that I worked in a warehouse before I got to move to beautiful Alaska. And observing the employees in this warehouse was an interesting experience. Now, the owner of this warehouse was very laid back. He supported the employees the best he could, and he wasn't really that particular about the details of how things got done, as long as they got done and they were done well and on time. Now, this meant, though, there was room for innovation and trying new things and creating new systems. And if you said, well, you know, it would work a lot better if this table was over there, then you move that table over there. However, as I said, the employees were an interesting cross-section of people, and not all were comfortable with this type of management. One woman in particular, she always did it just as the boss said to do it. And if you said, hey, you know, we could do da-da-da-da-da-da instead, and that would be more efficient or whatever, better product, she was not comfortable with doing it any other way. I mean, you could do it that way, but she would not do it any other way until she checked out with boss, even if the result was exactly the same but more efficient. And of course, the boss, being trusting, he just trusted folks to do their jobs, and he didn't sweat the details. He was a pretty good boss. But this is an example of how deep the fear of doing it wrong can be. She was paralyzed by her, almost paralyzed by her fear of doing it wrong and getting in trouble. Even in an environment relatively free of shame from authority, with no need to keep your head down and do make sure nobody notices you, she was stuck. It's kind of sad. But here's the thing my boss knew, and that it would be great for everybody in our culture to figure out, quoting from Brené's book, shame can only rise so far in any system before people disengage to protect themselves. When we're disengaged, we don't show up, we don't contribute, and we stop caring. So, have you ever had that feeling of, well, they don't care, so I won't care either? I've had that feeling. Have you So, we do that to protect ourselves, right? Because we don't want to have our feelings hurt. So we say, okay, well, they don't care, so I won't care either. And if I don't care, then I won't get hurt. But it takes a toll, because that's the cause of people quitting their jobs or quitting school. Or on the other side, they can use, they don't care, so I won't care either, as a reason to engage in unethical behavior. Well, nobody cares, so I'll just take this with me, or whatever it is. And another thing that happens if we are in fear of shame frame of mind, if we are living in that place, is that we have to find someone to blame. Someone has to be at fault. When something goes wrong, someone must be at fault and held accountable and punished. But here's what I know. Goof-ups happen. Things happen. We've all made mistakes. Sometimes goof-ups are out of our control. Sometimes maybe they were. But they happen. So back to my boss at the warehouse. Sure, if there was a big goof-up, he may be disappointed. But he was always focused on, let's get back to work. Let's see how we can do it better next time. What's a system that might need to be tweaked to make this better? How can we resolve the issue and continue to move on? Nobody got fired for doing something stupid or making a mistake. And that meant, of course, the people weren't afraid to admit when they made a mistake. And if you're not afraid to admit when you made a mistake, that's the first step to being able to resolve the mistake. When you have shame, you hide it. And it becomes worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, right? If we dropped, when we were painting, if we dropped paint on the floor, the carpet, the best thing would have been just to clean it up right away, right? But if we were ashamed of making that mistake, we would have just left it there, and then it would be a lot harder to clean up, right? And that's like it in our own lives. We did not spill paint on the floor. It was just a good example. There was a few moments, though. So, shame, fear, and blame, we can agree, are not effective ways to lead or manage or live our lives, right? Not very helpful. So what do we do? What's the antidote? That's what we want to know, right? The key is vulnerability. For the teacher, it may mean allowing the students to explore ideas that are not mainstream because they need to talk it over. Or maybe even letting them talk about something that you don't feel like you know enough about. And letting it be okay to say, well, that's an angle I haven't explored before, but let's all do some research and see what we find out. To build that sense of creativity and curiosity. For the boss, it might mean moving away from blame and guilt and into asking questions, into asking for solutions. The people out there doing the busy bee work usually know ways to make things more efficient, but a lot of times they're not allowed to do that. But in companies where they are allowed to do that, everything moves forward much more effectively. And people have that sense of belonging because they're allowed to have ideas. So part of that is, for the boss and everybody in a situation, in a family, to be able to give feedback that is specific but not nitpicky. I have a friend who has this assistant, and my friend was feeling like, well, this person is not doing their job well enough. There was some frustration about a lack of efficiency in a particular area of this person's work. And so instead of doing what maybe the normal, quote unquote, normal thing to do, my friend decided to stop and look at all the items on this person's job description. And the day-to-day tasks, just see all the things that this person does to help make it all happen. And she rated her assistant on each one of those tasks. And when she averaged it all out, it turned out that her assistant was actually perfectly average. Because there was some things on that list that her assistant did really, really well. But those aren't the things that you noticed, right? And so this gave my friend a bigger perspective and an ability to take a step back and praise the things that were working out well and give that appreciation that's important for people to feel engaged and stay connected, and be able to give specific feedback instead of just being like, well, this person's not doing their job well. It's not really true. This person's doing their job pretty well in many ways, but there's just some places where she needs something. Encouragement, support, training, whatever. And that changed the whole situation for them. But it takes being willing to see someone differently instead of the problem, but where's the solution? You know, for many of us, change and innovation and creativity are not things that we associate with comfortable feelings. However, the research says so clear that being open and honest is the key. It is the key to success in every part of our lives. And how do we get here from there or there? We want to go there, not here, there. How do we get there from here? Well, the research says to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Let the connections with others lead the way. Ideas and creativity are encouraged, asking for help and for feedback. And let that loop of information continue to roll. But I have more to say, because as a spiritual leader, I think this research is great, but there's a little bit more. As a spiritual leader, I want to add that Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, wrote that love is the great harmonizer that binds together the human family. I love that quote. Love is the great harmonizer that binds together the human family. But caring for others makes us vulnerable. Caring for our work or a cause makes us vulnerable. And while some distance themselves away from the ways that they can be connected to try to be safe, I propose something harder and better. When a relationship is difficult, don't put shame or conditions on it. Love them more. When it's difficult, love more. Even if you're loving from afar, if you created a healthy boundary that's required for your safety or whatever, that's fine. Love them more. When someone makes a choice you don't like, love them more. When you're incensed by something you read in the news, love them more. Call forth love in that situation. Imagine those who get under your skin, because we all have somebody who has at some point gotten under our skin. I'm sure even Mother Teresa had moments where someone got under her skin. Imagine whoever that may be in this moment as a baby or as a child. And when you imagine them as a baby or a child, you can give them the unconditional love that their current state of being you might find challenging. They need unconditional love. Everybody needs to be loved. Love is the energy that binds together the whole human family. You, me, everybody else. Even the people that are under your skin. The Bible tells us to love our enemies. All the world's major religions call for love and peace, as do the philosophers through the ages. Yes, sometimes we are caught in the trap of fear. We may feel wronged or without hope. But you know, no crops are harvested by worrying about what might happen. Nothing gets done. And no wounds are healed through shame and blame. Love always wins in the end. If love hasn't won, then it's not the end. Love always wins. Many people throughout history have stood up for change, equality, and justice, and have not seen the fruits of their efforts in their lifetime. But that doesn't make their efforts less worthwhile. It simply means that we continue to carry the torch for love and understanding to become the way the world works. I believe in a world that works for all. I believe that we all can change the way we see the world through glasses of peace and love and understanding. And it may not happen in my lifetime. It'd be awesome if it did, and it may not, but that doesn't stop me from choosing to live that way. We are all connected, and I will always believe that love will find a way. I invite you to join me in believing.